How many of you guys use VS Code regularly? Of course, I can't see your hands, but that's just to get you get everybody started, get all you listening. So I ran into this issue in when I was coding, when I was teaching myself Django, and just a little bit of context, Django is Python, but for the web. So I'll be using a lot of Python, I'll be using a lot of HTML, and I ran into this issue where there are certain settings that I want to use for Python files, and there are different settings that I want to use for HTML files or for JavaScript files or any other files. This particular one, tab sizes, right? So any of you that use Python, you probably use a tab size of 4 spaces. One, 2, 3, 4. 4 spaces. Any of you that use HTML, 4 spaces is probably a little too much. You have so many nested objects and they're just going to go all the way to the right-hand side of the page. It turns out that VS Code, you can set language-specific settings. Now, how do you do that? You open up VS Code, and there's a command called Control-Shift-P, and it's actually on here. If you can see my cursor, it's actually on here, Control-Shift-P, and you're able to search VS Code for settings. And all you have to do is type language specific, which I already gave this talk before, so it's all the way on the top, but language specific, and it lets you choose a language. So for now, I'm just going to use Python. And now what happens is that it opens up the settings.json, which is this file that has all the settings for VS Code. But I highlighted these lines that show, if you look at here, it says Python, editor tab size 4. That means for any language that's inside this little array over here in this JSON file, which right now is Python, I would apply these settings. I would make the tab size 4. If I apply, let's say, I forgot exactly how the settings.json reads it, but if I type in JavaScript or JS, then it's going to apply it to JavaScript files. If I say Ruby, then it's going to apply it to Python and Ruby files. So settings.json actually has this cool thing where you can set language specific settings within all of these settings, and all you have to do is type in the list of the languages that you want your settings to be. So this is what it looks like. It's pretty cool. Any questions so far? I could also show how this works. If I create a Ruby file, let me see. Now, if I create a Ruby file, it might not be Ruby. So now the indent is 2 spaces. If I do Control-Shift-P and I apply it to Ruby, I do editor tab size 4 for Ruby, and I go back, and you see now it's a much bigger tab. Just to make it more obvious, I'm going to just make it 16. It's a much bigger tab. Now that's one of the magics with saying.json. And this saying.json that I have right now, if you look at the breadcrumbs over here where my cursor is, this is the general sayings.json on my computer. You can also set sayings.json per project. So if I show you, if any of you see on the right-hand side where I have all of my files, there's this folder called .vscode. And there's a sayings.json in there. So that is for this project only. And I think it overwrites whatever my main sayings.json is. So my main sayings.json says Python files has an editor tab size of 4. If I write editor tab size of 16 for here, and I'll just write for Python. Yeah, if I make editor tab size 16 over here, I open up a Python file, and I tab it. It's still 4. Let me see what's going on. If I remove this. Okay, so now it's 16. So yeah, it doesn't seem like this project specific sayings.json file overwrites the normal sayings.json file, but it's a good way to set settings if you want a different setting for your project. For example, this is the project specific one, and I have certain linting settings applied, which I don't want for some of my other Python projects. So yeah, these are the two things that I want to show everybody. One is language specific settings for sayings.json, which you could see over here. You could also see an example for Ruby over here. And the other one is project specific sayings.json, which you could see over here. Any questions?
That's great. It's really nice to Confluence talk, just like, you know, a little problem that comes up all the time, and nice,
right.
concise solution. Questions? I've got one. Do you know if this works with Prettier or Standard JS or linting libraries like that?
Standard JS, Prettier. I would think that as long as it's something that you can put in a sayings.json file, this would apply. So if you can if it's a setting that you can put in a sayings.json file, like for example, I have ESLint for JavaScript over here. And in this project specific file, I have a Python linting library. So I would think as long as you can put it in sayings.json, you can apply it to language specifics, such as these.
Great. Other questions? It's a little funny on video. We can't can't see anyone like thinking and half raising their hand. So jump on in if you got a question.
If you're thinking, then say,